Так, дорогие друзья, здравствуйте. Рад всех видеть на своей лекции. Пожалуйста, отпишитесь в чат, что все нормально, вы меня видите, вы меня слышите, и мы будем начинать нашу лекцию.
Hello, dear colleagues and friends. We are here and we are ready to start our lecture. Please, first of all, let me know that you can hear and see us well. Please type on chat if it's okay for you.
Помогать мне будет моя помощница Анастасия, она будет меня переводить, и я приветствую всех, и наших русскоговорящих специалистов, и наших зарубежных коллег.
Today I'm working with my assistant Anastasia, who is here for translating, for voicing my lecture for our English-speaking colleagues. Today we are here to discuss a really important topic. All Vedapulse users are dealing with it, and the topic of the lecture sounds like that: the algorithm of data interpretation in the software module organ pulses, or sometimes we call it meridians. Before we start our lecture, I would like to say that my presentation today will be about some core essential ideas of how to operate with this software module. I'm going to share particular keys, and it's going to be more like a general guideline for you how to analyze, how to read data of the module organ pulses. It's not going to be a step-by-step analysis of operation with the module, but I'll share a basic vision with you. Till we are waiting for some of our colleagues who are still processing to download the webinar platform, I'm going to reveal some schedule of my lecture. First of all, let's talk about main topics of my lecture. We'll start with the presentation of a new Vedapulse software module, Time Diagnosis. Then we'll continue with a short review of the authentic schools of palpatory diagnosis. We'll compare traditional Chinese and Ayurvedic schools exactly. Each system, each school has its unique specific features, and for Vedapulse users it's essential to understand how software algorithms analyze it from different points of view, traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda. After that, we'll switch to the discussion of unique functional features of the module itself. We'll analyze the basic moments which the organ pulses module includes, and then continue with the analysis of its data. In the second part of my lecture, I'll share two basic algorithms of the organ pulses software module. We'll analyze particular specific clinical cases, and you will get a specific instruction how to read data of the organ pulses module and how to analyze them. I'm going to reveal two algorithms of the organ pulses software module. The first one will be especially useful for Ayurvedic practitioners because I'll show how to use data of this module in the Ayurvedic approach and how to extract the information which an Ayurvedic practitioner needs. The second algorithm is more for practitioners of traditional Chinese medicine. I'll show how to analyze conclusions from the traditional Chinese medicine point of view. We are ready to continue with the main topic of our lecture. And first of all, before talking about the software module organ pulses, I'll give you a short review of the authentic schools of the palpatory diagnosis. Looking back, when I just started studying classical traditional systems of healing, as a practitioner with a Western medical education, as a doctor with a classical medical degree, I could not find how it can be this way, like our pulse wave has all the information from the systems and organs of our body. And looking for the answers, I faced the particular theory, the theory which became then the fundamental basic for the whole VedaPulse device in future. And this theory is called functional systems theory. I should say that it is the core theory for the whole VedaPulse device, because it explains how we can get the data of a heart rate analysis and get the information about all the functional systems and organs from it. That's a really big topic to discuss, and unfortunately today I don't have enough time to reveal it, but I should say the core idea. Pulse wave is a result of a complicated process which happens in the body. And these phenomena, I mean heart beating, I mean cardiac rate and pulse wave, they are so tightly integrated that we cannot analyze one without others. Indeed, there is not such a big difference if we are using classical pulse palpation or cardiac rate analysis to get the information about the patient's condition. We are measuring and analyzing the same big data, but we are using different biophysical methods, biophysical ways to analyze it. Coming back to the authentic schools of the pulse diagnosis, and particular to the school of Dr. Vasant Lad, to which I belong to, we should talk about the 7 levels of the pulse. And it is exactly about the 1st and the 7th level of the pulse, at which we can estimate a condition of functional systems, which we call organ pulses. Now on the screen you can see a left hand of a patient and a projection in the superficial position and at the deepest level position, a projection of particular systems. It's important to say that organ pulses projection differs a little bit in the Ayurvedic approach and in the Chinese tradition. That's why I met a kind of confusion sometimes among practitioners of the traditional Chinese medicine during our workshops. But the core idea is not so complicated and confusing. Let's do a short experiment. Now please take your right hand and place the 3 fingers of your left hand in the classical position for the pulse palpation. So you could feel your arteria radialis, and your indicating finger will be at the point to feel the pulse of the large intestine at the 1st level of the pulse, and the lungs pulse at the 7th level of the pulse. After you feel it, you need to compare a strength, a power of the pulse push. You should analyze your feelings. For some organs, you can feel that the pulse is strong enough. For others, no. For others, it will be weak, not strong enough. In case then pulse is weak, you will feel a kind of weak pressure of the arteria to your fingertip. For example, how am I doing it now? First of all, I put my indicating finger to feel the pulse at the superficial position, and I can feel a strong pulse of large intestine in this position for myself. When I'm going deeper and to feel the 7th level of pulse, I need to press the arteria completely. Then I just raise a little bit my fingertip, and when I feel the first pulse push, and after that I can estimate how strong it is. For me now at the moment, lungs pulse is weak, not strong enough. So the basic idea how we do it technically, we should distinguish between weak and strong pulse of particular functional system, and we compare only specific one functional system at its deepest and superficial levels of the pulse. We don't compare two systems standing nearby near each other. We are working with one position at once. So you see, every specialist who can do it can use this manual technique just to get a holistic overview, but without specification of a diagnosis for particular functional system. To find out a particular syndrome, we use exactly this term syndrome for the diagnosis in traditional systems of healing. We need to do a cross-correlated analysis, and a bit later I'll talk about it. Now you see a classical scheme of a palpatory technique in the Chinese tradition, and please look at the middle position here on the picture, which is called guan. You see that zones here are standing for different sites. If we take an Ayurvedic school of Dr. Vasant Lal, for example, then we will see that for the left hand of the patient, we always use a projection of a gallbladder zone at the superficial level and liver projection at the deepest level. For the traditional Chinese medicine, it will be stomach projection for superficial level and spleen and pancreas projection for the deepest level. In my humble opinion, I should say that the Ayurvedic scheme with its projection looks a little bit more logical for me, because we are talking about the right hand of a person, and we are talking about such projections as gallbladder and liver, and you know these organs, they are located exactly in the right part of our body, though if we are talking about stomach and spleen, for example, they belong to the left side. But it doesn't mean that I underestimate some of these two systems. They both are valid for me. No doubt, I'm sure all specialists who joined us today can find not only such a big structural difference in these two systems which I mentioned, but also some functional difference as well. But it's not the topic to discuss now. What we need to understand is the final result. The final result is similar. It is the pathological syndrome verification. When we are talking about registration of a pulse, about pulse diagnosis, we should say it's not enough to estimate just a strength of pulse pulses. No, also we need to do an analysis of its projection. When we analyze projection of pulse pulses, we can find out how a particular organ pulse is connected to the imbalance of Mahadoshas. To finish this part of my lecture, I'd like to say that you see, pulse wave is the unique phenomenon, and talking about the 7 levels of a pulse, we are talking particularly about a degree of how deep a practitioner specialist is going with palpating pulse, how deep it's going with its fingers on the arteria to feel and to hear specific indications, to feel biophysical elements which are located exactly at these levels. And I'm sure it's a question of the nearest future for our science to find a correlation between all the spectrum of biophysical activities in the pulse wave phenomenon and its synchronization to the functional systems and organs. Before reading and analyzing data of the organ pulses module, I'd like to give you a short introduction to its functionality. This module consists of 3 sections. The first section is devoted to the Ayurvedic scheme and Ayurvedic approach of the projection of pulses of organs. You can see on the screen projections for 2 hands of a patient, that is the right hand and the left hand. Superficial level of the pulse at the top of the scheme and the deepest 7th level of the pulse at the bottom. And we see 3 zones, 3 points for palpation. They are indicating, middle and ring fingers at the right hand of the patient. You remember a few minutes ago we did an experiment and we were trying to hear a pulse of the large intestine and lungs. Now you can see its projection, its illustration here on the screen. Analyzing the data of the large intestine pulse, we should say it's strong enough. Here is a green light in this column, which indicates us that is strong enough at the superficial pressure level. But at the same time, you can see that a column which stands here at this palpation zone at the deepest pressure level is not green. It is reddish, and if we compare the height of these 2 columns, it is even bigger. But please pay attention. It does not mean, if you see such indication in the VedaPulse software, it doesn't mean that lungs pulse push is stronger comparing to the large intestine pushes. No, on the contrary, it means that lungs pulse pushes are weak. Indeed, we should talk about the acute process which takes place here at the particular moment, and we should talk about adaptation resources systems involvement to compensate this acute process. That's why, due to this involvement, we got not a strong enough weak pulse for this particular system. Let's do another analysis. For example, have a look at the zone of a ring finger here on the screen. You can see here are 2 systems are involved. The first one is pericardium, which is responsible for our vessels condition, and the second one is a triple heater system, which is responsible for a range of things, including endocrine system. And you can see here is a triple heater meridian, or as Dr. Vasant Lath used to say, a system of free dorsal circulation. Looks strong enough. It has enough of adaptation resources. You can see it is marked in green color. And if you are talking about the pericardium system, you can see here it looks different. It is colored in yellow. It means that the pericardium system, which corresponds to our vascular system in the body, is weak because it is not strong enough. It is depleted due to involvement in a long-term perspective in compensation of the chronic process, and chronic pathological process is the core idea here. So you see, with the help of a VetaPulse device and its algorithms, a specialist can see not only the data which a classical pulpitular diagnosis gives us, but also to estimate even a trend, a tendency, for example, a weakened, not strong enough, weak pulse pushes. The second section reflects a Chinese scheme, or better we should say it reflects energetics projection for each functional system, which kind of energetic it uses to function properly. The key element here is a combination of two lines on the scheme, red and blue. Each of them has its own functional meaning. Also, you can see here are different colors on the pie chart. If we take a green color, it stands here to show us a balanced condition, compensated condition. It means that all processes are compensated well, even if there is some chronic process in the body. Talking about red and yellow color, we should say that if you see a line in these zones, we are talking about uncompensated phenomena. The red line shows us morphological elements of this functional system. Blue line stands for functional features of the system. I would like now to analyze a particular functional system, the third functional system, which corresponds to the stomach, for you to get the idea how to move in analysis of this data. You see here all the pie chart is divided into 12 segments, and each segment stands for a particular functional system. Each of them is marked with Latin Roman figures, and if we take this segment number 3, for example, it is here to show us the processes connected to hydrolysis, to those processes which happen into the food after it gets into stomach. And if we are talking about food not only in the Western meaning of this word, and if we are talking about processes which is happening to it, then we should have a look to a traditional Chinese medicine system, for example, there it is described. For example, if you see that both lines, both curves, the red and the blue one, are standing in the green zone of this segment number 3, it means that this particular functional system is functioning properly on both levels. There is no morphological changes, and it is functioning well also on the functional level. The next condition, the red line stands for the green range, but the blue line is in the red zone. So it's a condition which still has no pathological morphological changes, but there is a tendency in the functions to imbalance, and it can be some not a long-term, not chronic, something particular at the moment, but also it's indication for us to pay attention to it. Another condition, let's take the situation, then the red line stands in the red zone and blue line stands in the green normal range. In this case, we are talking about some pathological processes in the mucous membrane, mucous wall of the stomach. Probably it reacted somehow to the outer influence, or some kind of hyperemia took place as a reply to pathogenic factor. And we can see it in the indication of a red line. But at the same time, functioning are compensated. It means that stomach copes with its basic function of control and digesting food. If we analyze another clinical situation, then both lines, the red and the blue ones, are standing in the red zone on the scheme. We are talking about another condition, about a condition of acute process. Normally, such condition is followed by the painful feelings, by the painful syndrome. And if we are talking about stomach exactly, then it can be a situation of hyperacidity, and at the morphological level, there is also a change, a transformation at the wall of the stomach. For example, now you can see a print screen of a real clinical case that was a female patient with complaints for heartburn. And that was kind of chronic for her, constant heartburn. We will not analyze fully now. We would like just to show you how to read the indications at the level of the third functional system. And this patient is supposed to have a peptic ulcer. That was her idea about what she feels. But after I did an examination of this patient with the help of the VEDAPULSE device, I told her there is no indications for some morphological changes, structural changes in your stomach system. But here is a particular indication that the function is imbalanced. And you can see here is blue line, which is out of a normal range. It is in the red zone. That is indication for functional changes. If we are talking about root of the condition, we should go deeper, and I would call it a syndrome of Qi stagnation in the liver. And when a specialist working with the VEDAPULSE software module organ pulses, he should read data of this module like this. Should read data for each of functional systems like we did it now with only one system of the stomach. And coming back to the classical method of the pulse diagnosis, when we are using palpation to find a weak or strong pulse process, I should say that this method of cardiac rate analysis gives us much more data, much more information to analyze, and because here we can decide between morphological and functional changes as well. The third section of this software module is devoted to the functional status of the systems. From the clinical physiology point of view, it is closer to the naturopathic system, I would say, and it is here to show in a clear way for patient which zones, which systems in his body needs special attention. In the nearest future, I'm planning to design a specific course on functional systems and its analysis. But while we have not launched it yet, please find this monography, this book by Professor Sudakov, because you really need a knowledge about functional systems to work with this module and to analyze its data. When we say functional system in terms of Western medicine, we mean just the same as the channel meridian system in the traditional Chinese medicine, where we've got channel meridian systems with the main organ in each one. And also in Ayurvedic school, we've got similar phenomena, which are Agni-Dhatu and Sabdosha system. Now I'd like to share some examples which will be used in the next part of my lecture, where we are analyzing clinical cases. So now on the screen you can see a meridian of lungs in traditional Chinese system, which is closer to the functional system responsible for the gas exchange from naturopathy and physiology point of view. And it is the system which is finally responsible for the energy generation at the tissue level. From traditional Chinese point of view, lungs is the system which is responsible for the pure chi energy. In Ayurvedic terms, that is the system which can accumulate prana. In terms of clinical physiology or naturopathy, we are talking about such processes as a constant gas exchange level in our tissues, and the final result of this process, when it goes well, it's our energy. Now we finished with a broad overview of the organ pulses module. We need to start with it to continue with a particular algorithm of analyzing the data of the organ pulses module. Now you can write down or just remember few simple steps which each specialist should follow when analyzing the data of this module. The first thing to do is to analyze the balance of Maha doshas in the constitution module. Then, using a specific algorithm, which I'll reveal now, we need to evaluate the probability of a particular stage of pathogenesis samprapti.
После этого мы должны посмотреть, а как дисбалансированы системы регуляции, которые в аюрведе называются субдоши.
After that, especially needs to do an analysis of the subdoshas balance. Only after these steps we need to switch to the data of the organ pulses module and analyze them. Without preliminary analysis, we cannot see the whole picture. That is a real clinical case. Now you can see print screen from the VedaPulse software, and a bit later I'll reveal which diagnosis the person had. But now I would like you to follow my logic when analyzing the data of the VedaPulse software. First of all, we should say that this graph is divided into several ranges, and each range, each zone corresponds to a particular stage of a disease. First of all, we will talk about the green normal range. You can see it is located between values 2 and 4 on the vertical scale, and it stands for the balanced condition of a system of regulation, which is called dosha as well. If you see dosha in this range, it means that the dosha is localized right, and there is no tendencies to its depletion or excessive projection. The next range, it stands between 4 and 5 values on the vertical scale, and it is here for the condition of excitation of dosha when it starts accumulating and it starts aggravating, but still is in the normal range. The next range between 5 and 7 on the vertical scale is connected to the situation when dosha starts spreading and it starts changing its localization and moving to Dhatus. And the next range, upper than 7 on the vertical scale in this scheme, corresponds to the fifth and sixth stages of some property, then a disease is manifested well, and then morphological changes took place. If you go down from the normal range and analyze the range between 1 and 2 on the vertical scale, light green color here, it is a condition when we call dosha kshaya. It corresponds to the depletion of regulatory mechanisms. And yellow range, everything which stands between 0 and 1 on vertical scale, is here for a condition of blockage, when a dosha is blocked. If a specialist works in the Ayurvedic tradition, then the first thing to do before analyzing organ pulses data is to analyze a condition of Mahadoshas, as I've just described. The next step we should do before reading the organ pulses module data is estimated tissue metabolism, or Agni-Dhatu balance. You can see on the screen that Rasa-Dhatu, Meda-Dhatu, and Shukra-Dhatu are in the yellow range here. Yellow range means that metabolism in this particular dhatu is decreased due to the chronic pathological process. At the same time, you can see that Mansa Dhatu column stands in the red zone. It means that Mansa Dhatu feels tension, and it gives a reflectory feedback on some outer processes to compensate. And if we go to the heel of Schrotas, you can see that there are changes in Schrotas in channels between muscular and fat tissues. They are changed, and in Ayurvedic terms we call this changed condition ama accumulation. Let's go back to the previous slide. We can switch to it and we'll see that we were talking about a particular condition of Kapha Vriddhi. It was imbalanced, and now in this screen we are discussing involvement of following tissues: Rasa, Medas, and Shukra Dhatu, and Mamsa Dhatu as well. Congress registration is already available and open. You can join the Congress by following the link. You can see it now on the chart. It is available not only for our international colleagues, but also for those Russian specialists who would like to improve their English knowledge by listening to English-speaking native experts. We are coming next to the next step of analysis of the Veda pulse data, and before switching to the organ pulses module exactly, I would like to talk about sub-doshas balance. You can see on the screen now that both Apana and Vyana Vayu, as well as Ranjaka Pitta, stands in the yellow zone. You remember, yellow zone, yellow color means that a particular system of regulation, in Sanskrit we call it subdosha, this system is involved in the compensatory process. Apanavayu, as a system of regulation, is responsible for three big systems in the body. The first of them is our reproductive system. Vyana Vayu is responsible for the energy circulation in the organism, and it is responsible for the liquid circulation in the body. I'm talking about our vessel system, but what is even more important, it is responsible for the lymph circulation. Ranjaka Pitta is connected to the liver functional system, which is, among others, involved in the biotransformation of steroids, of steroidal hormones, for our reproductive function. Now it's time to switch exactly to the organ pulses module of the female patient we mentioned before. And you see now on the screen her diagnosis, and you see the data of a Veda pulse assessment for her. You can see that the first functional system here is in the red zone. It means here is a tension in this system, which is connected to the immune function. The second functional system, which stands here in the yellow zone, shows us, in combination with some other indicatory signs, a chronic inflammatory process in the intestine. Now please have a look at the eighth system, which is connected to kidney, and to the 10th and 12th systems as well. Please remember this combination. Then you see a combination like this. The functional system number 8, number 10, and number 12 are involved together in the process. It's a clear indication for us to the imbalance of reproductive system. So you see a particular clinical case of this patient with her uterine myoma, uterine fibroids, and ovarian cysts is showing here with the Apana Vayu, Vyana Vayu, and Rajaka Pitta imbalance involvement, as well as Rasa, Medas, Shukra, and Mamsat Dhatu involvement. Working like this within the holistic analysis, we can get the understanding of a particular syndrome in each clinical case. I am talking syndrome, not a diagnosis, because to put a particular diagnosis, you need to be a medical doctor. Now let's switch to the second algorithms of the data analysis from the traditional Chinese medicine point of view. There is its own inner logic. Following it, we can find and verify a particular syndrome of TCM. First of all, we need to find out which particular syndrome among 9 possible is represented here. The next step is to estimate the energy potential in the system, because not only methods of therapy but also a long-term prediction for the situation development is connected to the energy potential. The next step is the analysis of the presence of pathogenic factors which can invigorate disease development. And as the last step, we switch to the organ pulses software module to estimate, to find the main pathological syndrome of TCM. Just the same way as in the Ayurvedic system, we have 9 possible constitutional types when we summarize monotypes and dual constitutional types. We also got 9 basic syndromes in traditional Chinese medicine. Here you can see a correspondence table, and coming back to the clinical case of a female patient, we were talking about Kapha-Vata type condition in Ayurvedic terms, which corresponds to the energy stagnation, Qi stagnation in the system of Chinese medicine. These conditions gives a predisposition to the different tumors development. So you see, in both schools, in both traditions, in Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine, we've got a similar approach for the syndrome verification. For example, now on the screen you can see data of a patient of Vata Kapha constitution, which corresponds to the yang emptiness syndrome in TCM tradition. The next step is connected to the analysis of a pathogenic factor. To verify which particular pathogenic factor is involved, we are using an Ayurvedic scheme and logic of traditional Chinese medicine. If we analyze an Vata dosha factor, it corresponds to the pathogenic factor of wind. We can call it pathogenic wind in Chinese tradition. If you see that Vata or wind is higher than 5 on the constitutional scale, and there are changes in the first functional system which is connected to the lungs, we should say for the verification of the syndrome of cold and dryness in the lungs, it can be in two types, or in depletion or in excessive condition.
С признаками
Fullness.
пустоты, emptiness и fullness.
Emptiness and fullness. Main symptoms for these conditions are cold and dryness, and especially one of the most obvious symptoms is dry cough. One of the most often symptom of this condition is a neurotic bronchospasm, which is a reaction to these factors. Let's analyze another sample, another example, clinical case. Here you can see that Pitta is higher than 5 on vertical scale in this scheme. In Chinese tradition, we should talk about pathogenic heat. And if you see corresponding changes in the organ pulses module, then you can verify the syndrome of heat in the lungs, whether it will be empty heat in the lungs or full heat in the lungs. Syndrome of heat in the lungs is normally connected to the inflammatory processes of the mucous or submucosal membranes of the upper respiratory tract and bronchial tree, with inflammation in parenchyma and the interstitium, and normally it has a bacterial nature. The third clinical example is connected to the accumulation of dampness and phlegma in the channel, in the system. And if at the same time there are changes in the first functional system, that is indication for us to talk about the syndrome of dampness and energy stagnation in the lungs. So I'd like to prevent you from fast decisions. It's not enough for us just to have a look at the energy splash and decide for particular syndrome. You saw just 3 different conditions and 3 totally different syndromes now. It can be different condition connected to the dryness or connected to the heat in the lungs, or in the third case, you remember, it was a syndrome of dampness and energy stagnation. If a specialist goes deeper, he see that each functional system has not just 3 but 9 different syndromes, and it is a question of going deeper and deeper, which is important for us today. I gave you a guideline, I gave you a key. Now you know how to move, which logic to use when analyzing the data of the organ pulses module. And VetaPulse is a perfect tool for a specialist who needs a complex rehabilitation program for a patient. Because if you take, for example, a specialist in phytotherapy, those who works with herbal medicine, such specialists can easily use our Herbal Encyclopedia software module. You just switch to it, to the particular section of traditional Chinese medicine, and you got the complex rehabilitation program according to the 9 constitutional syndromes, or according to one of the 48 organ syndromes. It's up to the specialist to decide. That was a brief review of just one step of working with patients. There are 5 such steps. Talking about analysis of the organ pulses data, we mean particularly the 3rd step in this system, when we need to analyze the cross-correlated data. In my lecture during the 1st International Online Congress on Pulse Diagnosis ProPulse on the 2nd of November, I am going to reveal all the 5 steps which each specialist practitioner who operates a VEDA Pulse machine should follow when working with the patient. Thank you for your attention. That's now time to answer some of your questions, only some of them, because even with the lecture we ran out of time a little bit, but lot to discuss. Now your questions, please. The first question: why you say the right ovary? Does it mean that we see a mirror reflection in the VEDA Pulse TAN diagnosis module? Yes, Svetlana, you are absolutely right. It is a mirror reflection. The next question: can the VEDA Pulse detect some bacterial or viral or parasites? The answer is positive. I would say yes, but we cannot decide for particular type of virus or infection. We can see clear indications, some signs which are involved and which indicate for parasites infection. Such signs and indications we usually analyze during our offline workshops and seminars, but to give you some core ideas, please pay attention to the Clidaca kappa subdosha, because it is correlating with Helicobacter pylori. Pay attention to the Ranjaka pitta subdosha, because it is often involved in the parasitic processes in the hepatobiliary system, and Apana vayu, which is usually connected directly to the dysbiosis in the intestine. Answering the question of Natalia about possible collaboration, we should say we are open to the new partners and ready to collaborate. Feel free to contact us using our websites, vedapulse.com and vedapulse.ru. You can use Jira site chart, or you can call us. What is more comfortable to you, please. The next question: does VEDA Pulse take into consideration the difference between the Chinese approach and Ayurvedic approach? Yes, we should answer the following way. The basic algorithm of the VEDA Pulse is based on Ayurvedic and Tibetan schools. But in spite of this fact, you just saw from my lecture how we can use the data of the VEDA Pulse device. We can reflect them and we can analyze them in terms of different traditional systems. The next question about the Atlas section of the organ pulses module. Currently, answering this question, I should say currently I'm working on the improvement and development of this module. Soon there will be a new content, a new text description for each functional system in the Atlas. Why do not measure the arteria radialis with VEDA Pulse? Answering this question, I would like to quote Dr. Asan Plat, who usually says, no matter which method we use to get the information about our organs, systems, and dosha balance, it can be both pulse palpation or examining the heart. if we are working with heart with VedaPulse technology, we don't need a mechanical registration of a pulse wave. The next question, what is Zin? It looks like you are talking about a Chinese term, Zin, or in English it sounds as nourishing qi. The next question from Petra, what do you mean by Maha doshas? Maha doshas mean three main doshas, three main systems of regulation. The next question, how many levels of pulse can the VedaPulse device estimate? VedaPulse can estimate 6 of 7 possible levels of pulse. By now, we cannot estimate and analyze the only one level of Manas Prakriti. All the other 6 we can analyze. The next question is about the Italian seminar in Milano. What will be the language of the seminar? Dr. Alex Sorokin will have his lectures in Russian with direct translation into Italian. If you are interested in English-speaking seminar or workshop, then please follow our website vedapulse.com. Its particular part oncoming events. Normally during a year we've got a lot of seminars in different European countries, so follow our schedule and feel free to join. Also, you can find my lectures on our website. They are published as records and they're translated into English, available for free for all registered users. Answering the question about the price of the TAN diagnosis module, please use our website. There are all prices. They are available, they are published online, and you can find all the prices, not only the TAN diagnosis module there, or you can contact directly your manager to ask. Answering the question of Ilona about measurement, estimation in different sections of organ pulses module, we should say that you are right about replicating the data. Atlas is another way to watch the same data, and if there is no morphological changes in particular part, then you will not see this system in Atlas is well marked with a red color. And our partner in Netherlands also answering you. Galina is asking why graphs differs and why we see different meridians involved in different pictures. Galina, I used clinical cases of different patients to show you different syndromes and conditions, so here is no direct correlation between these screenshots. Will the seminar in Vilnius be in English? Yes, it will be in Russian originally, but with the translation into English.
Ну что, друзья, благодарю вас за внимание. Надеюсь, моя лекция дала вам немного знаний, которые воплотятся в ваши новые компетенции, навыки. Вы получите больше возможностей к оценке состояния с вашими пациентами. Жду вас на наших мероприятиях, на наших образовательных программах и искренне верю в то, что VedaPulse является вашим незаменимым помощником для принятия правильного решения.
So thank you very much for your attention, for your reaction and for all your questions. Thank you. We did a great lecture today, and I hope that I shared some knowledge with you which will be useful in your everyday practice when working with a VedaPulse device. So let the shine of eternal knowledge bless you, and I hope that the VedaPulse device will be not just a tool for you, but an everyday assistant which helps to make your practice even better, to help your patients. Thank you.
Всего доброго. До новых встреч.